All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Atheniano Show. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, Raphael Oyedele. Raphael is a language consultant at Adherence Consulting in Lagos. He speaks 5 languages and has a master's in Romance languages from the University of Alabama. So, Raphael, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Ethan, for having me.
As many of you guys know, I'm very interested in sub-Saharan Africa politics, and I figured that a great place to kind of start to dive into that would be sub-Saharan Africa's largest country by population. So Nigeria has a population of 237 million people, and it is the largest economy and population in Africa, as I just said. And it's the 6th largest population in the world. So a country of immense importance, not just in Africa, but in the world. And Raphael, I know that you are in Nigeria right now. Is that correct?
No, I'm not in Nigeria. I'm in the US.
You're not in Nigeria.
Yeah, I'm in the United
Where are
States.
you?
I'm in the United States. I'm in Alabama right now.
You're in Alabama. Okay. But you're from Nigeria.
I'm from Nigeria, correct.
And where in Nigeria are you from?
I'm from Lagos, Nigeria.
From Lagos. Okay. Well, I have a couple questions for you just because I know that probably most of my audience is not going to know a ton about Nigerian politics. So I just want to ask you, like, very off the bat, like, how is the government structured in Nigeria? What is the political system in Nigeria?
Actually, it is. You marvel a lot of your listeners to know that Nigeria Constitution was copied based on the U.S. Constitution. So in Nigeria, we have the president, we have the vice president, and we also have the ministers. Here we got the commissioner and secretaries, but here we have the ministers, and we also have we have the National Assembly, or we also have the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
So which are the entities that make the laws? Like the same thing we have in the US also. And Nigeria is also a multi-party country. It's not a unilateral party country. We have is run a democratic system of government, and we have a lot of political parties that contest election, and the winner emerges.
Mm-hmm. And so I understand that Nigeria it's a federal republic, right? And there's
It is.
so in the US we have like 50 states, but in Nigeria, how many states are there?
In Nigeria, we have, I think, 36 states. 36 states. Each state has a governor, like here, and we have cities also. I think the same system.
Mm-hmm. And just for those who don't know, like what languages are spoken in Nigeria? Like, what are the most common spoken languages?
Nigeria was colonized by the British. Nigeria got independence in the years 1960, but the colonization lasted for a kind of a century, and so Nigeria speak majorly the English language. But apart from that, aside that, we also have the people local languages, like the ethnic groups. We have over 300 languages aside English. But English is a common language because people have their different languages. If I speak my language, the other person may not hear, but English is the language associated. Everybody is the work language, is the school language, and that's the language mostly spoken in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm. Well, did you say that there's 200 languages spoken in Nigeria?
Over 300.
Over 300.
Over 300 languages.
And so,
300 ethnic groups.
okay.
300 ethnic groups.
So I'm assuming, as you mentioned, that's because there's many different tribes in Nigeria.
Correct.
So what are the largest tribes then? Are there some that are larger than others, or are they all the same size?
Is a question that's a bit difficult to answer, but the way it works in Nigeria, we got more than 300 ethnic groups in Nigeria, but we have the minority ethnic groups. We have the majority ethnic groups. So the majority ethnic groups, I'm sure if you know someone or you've known someone from Nigeria, when you ask the person where are you from, is either the person tells you what ethnic group are you, is either the person tells you I'm Yoruba, I'm Igbo, or I'm Hausa. Those are the three largest ethnic groups in Nigeria because they're the largest ethnic group, the majority. But we also have the minority ethnic groups that are not part of those largest ethnic groups, which are Igbo, Hausa, and Yoruba. But we have, apart from that, we have 100 ethnic groups. We have Idoma, we have Ishekiri, a lot of them.
In the government, are most of the elected officials of one ethnic group, or is there some kind of system where they have to share, like alternate between who's which majority ethnic group has controls the central government?
And I think the system Nigeria was able to adopt since independence is like they didn't lean on one ethnic groups. Like it happened in Rwanda when we have the Tutsi and the Hutus, where the I think the Hutu were in power then. If it was it the Hutu or the Tutsi were in power, and they were only employing that particular ethnic group, and it became a genocide we all know about. But Nigeria was able to learn from that mistake. So the way it is in Nigeria is not based the appointment. The appointment are not based on ethnic groups. But when you talk about the Senate, the power about the Senate, the House of Assembly, like each local government, each state has a certain number of local governments. Okay, Nigeria is divided into six regions. We have the southwest, we have the northwest, we have the west, we have the southern part of it. So it's divided into six ethnic groups. So each of those six ethnic groups have their representation in the both chambers. That's the House of Assembly and also the Senate. Now, when it comes to appointment is based on your capability. It's based on what you can do, because the president, the minister are chosen based on each state. That means Nigeria we have a large cabinet because each state is represented. Each state has a minister representing the cabinet to make it to make it to make it to take someone in each state. But when it comes to appointment, other appointment are based on your capability. It's not based on ethnic groups. So that's why it's called a federal republic.
And who is the current president of Nigeria right now?
The current president, his name is Bola Tinubu. He used to be the former governors in Lagos State. That was those in the 90s, and he's the current president in Nigeria. Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That's the name.
Is he would you say he's popular? Like what do people say about him? Is he popular across Nigeria?
When it comes to Nigeria, some people are a bit emotional about the state of Nigeria. But right now, I'm on your program, on your podcast. So I will put my emotional parts of Nigeria inside me, and I will be kind of, critical in my approach. You know, say asking if a president is popular, is a kind of funny question. If he asks me if he's popular, of course he's Nigerian president, and he's the president of the biggest black nation in the world, and his president is the president of one of the African largest economies. In the past decade, Nigeria used to be the number one Africa economy, but when it happened, like when the president came, he took some radical decision. economic decision about removing fuel subsidies. Nigeria will be paying first fuel subsidy. We call it fuel subsidy, like that is gas. So the reason why it is subsidized is because Nigeria didn't have a functional refineries. Nigeria I think is the African largest oil country. Like when it goes to oil company, I mean gas, like where we have petroleum. It's part of OPEC. That is the organization of petroleum producing countries. Is the largest, but unfortunately, Nigeria didn't have a working refineries. So most I say gas. I don't In Nigeria we call it fuel, but in the US people know it as gas. So the fuel is refined outside Nigeria at a cost, and when it lands, it also has a cost. And because the exchange rate is done in dollars, in Nigeria we don't spend dollars. So the disparity between the landing cost and the actual price of the gas or the fuel was subsidized by the government, and it was running in millions of dollars every year. And sometimes they also discovered that some people were, they were they were lying about the figures, about the figure they were importing in their fuel import. So, and the government was the one subsidizing those things. So when the president came, that was 2023, he took a radical decision that no more fuel subsidy, and that created a lot of economic hardship. In the short term, it's very painful for Nigerians, but in the long term, that was the right way to go. So if you ask someone in Nigeria today, if the president is popular, of course, he's always divided into two. Like here, if you ask me, Donald Trump popular? Some people will say, like, some people like him, some people don't like him. It's the same thing everywhere. So about the popularity of the president, some people like the way he went about the economy. He just started on a clean sheet, unlike other past government who didn't have the courage. We didn't have the courage to remove the fuel subsidy. And in Nigeria, the fuel is tied to the economy. So when the fuel price goes up, it affects every other side of the economy. So
Well, that kind of bled into my next question, because I know that Nigeria, as you mentioned, has one of the largest oil reserves in Africa, one of the largest oil reserves in the world, and is rich with natural resources, but still around 40 to 50% of people live in poverty. Why do you think that is? Like, what are some of the factors that this immense resources and fuel haven't translated into more economic prosperity? Not just because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the wealthiest man in Africa is from Nigeria.
yeah,
But still, among the population, there's a lot of poverty, not just poverty, but extreme poverty. So why hasn't that wealth translated into higher standards of living?
that's a question every sensible human being will ask. It's like your dad being a rich man, and you wearing rags. You looking not bad. You looking bad. That's a question people will ask. Like, is your dad not taking care of you? But the way I will respond to that is that Nigeria is very rich. Nigeria is blessed. In fact, someone was saying sometimes that Africa is the only continent that don't need to import anything. It doesn't need to import fuel, which is gas. Africa doesn't need to import gold, because they have a lot of natural reserve in gold. They don't have to import lithium, which is used in electric battery manufacturing. They don't have to import cobalt. Just name it. They don't have to import trees. Africa has the largest forest in the world. That's a continent that does not have to import anything. But at the same time, that's the poorest continent in the world. Have you asked yourself the question? So what I can say, the question I can bring to that is that When you have the resources and the resources are not being managed properly, I'm sure it won't resolve to the economic prosperity that people are looking for. It's like you have in your compound now, you have in a gold reserve. If you don't dig those gold and refine them and sell them, you won't make no benefit. Nigeria is so rich in everything. But the problem we have in Nigeria right now, the number one problem we have in Nigeria is the leadership problem. So so far Nigeria Nigeria, like, I attach it also to, because most African countries are also suffering from the same problem, which is leadership. In Africa, you have some president who has been in power for over 30 years who don't want to go. Who don't care about the welfare of the people. They care about their own private pockets. So the resources, if the resources are managed the way it's supposed to be managed, we won't have the poverty line you just mentioned in Nigeria and most African countries.
Is that just poor management, or is there a level of corruption that's also responsible for that?
When I talk about management, corruption is also part of it. Corruption is also part of it. Corruption is part of it, the management. When you see some politician embezzling money, the money that are meant for the welfare of the people. You take, for example, now, you take in the Senate, those senators, they get what they call it. I think it's, let me call their constituency allowance. The constituency allowance in Nigeria is the senator or the House of Rep member representing that particular constituency in the National Assembly will bring out some projects from some most needed projects, that the people really need in that constituency. Okay, they do the quotation. This is the amount of money the project gonna need, and they give the particular senator, since you are the one representing that community, because we can go to the community and give everybody money. You're the one the people voted for. So we give you the money, go to their constituent and go and do the project. You know what? Sometimes the project is not done. The money goes into private pockets. Sometimes questions are asked, but most time questions are not asked. It's politicized. The few times the question are asked, maybe it was a political opponent. They just wanted to use it as a target, but most time the question are not asked. You understand? So the level of corruption is also one of the what I call mismanagement. Corruption is part of it, and corruption is the biggest problem of the mismanagement of Nigerian resources that we're talking about.
So is it not just that there's, because I understand there's corruption, and that's obviously a glaring problem in distributing the money back to the people, but is it also that the kind of orchestration or the dealing with these resources could be utilized to generate more revenue than is currently generated?
Yeah, I think oil in Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken, oil in Nigeria was discovered, I think, after independence. Before independence, Nigeria economy was based mainly on agriculture. Nigeria was known as one of the richest country, not based on oil. Some people even say the oil in Nigeria is more than a cost than a blessing. Since oil was discovered, Nigeria forgot the development of agriculture, which was the baseline of Nigeria riches or Nigeria greatness. If I tell you, Ethan, that 70 to 80% of the national resources Nigeria has are untapped.
Or on what?
Untapped, like they are
Oh,
unused. They are on like they are untapped. They're almost like they are not being explored. 70 to 80% is
wow.
now this the Ministry of Mining want to start, developing some resources like gold, like lithium in the northeast, which is also security plagued. And one of the reasons why in the northeast we have the security issues is based on the natural resources they have. There is a state in Nigeria called Zamfara State. In Zamfara State, they have one of the largest gold deposits in Nigeria, one of the largest, and it attracts a lot of people from neighboring countries who want to tap that gold, and it causes insecurity problem for the people. So the natural resources, though Nigeria has natural resources, we have all those rich, but it's on tap. So it's like I give you money and you don't use the money to buy nothing. Or I give you some, like some people use lemonade, they use lemon to make lemonade. So when you have the resources in your underground and you are not exploring them, tell me, how do you make benefit of it?
What about um, in terms of like foreign direct investment? How has Nigeria fared in kind of becoming a environment for foreign investment? Like, has you seen an uptick because of all these resources in direct investment, or is that something that Nigeria still struggles to get?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. Before investor will come to a particular sector in your country, they must be assured. And one of the assurances like is security. The people we have a lot of foreign investors in Nigeria. They're investing in other sectors. Mostly, we have a lot of international oil companies in Nigeria. We have Total. We have, I don't know if I can mention on your program. We have a lot of them in Nigeria, but they mostly for the oil companies. And also, apart from the oil company, we also have a lot of French companies in Nigeria who are in the area of industries like hospitality industries and other industries. But this particular industry we're talking about, which are natural resources, is now Nigeria don't want to explore them. We have all those we have all those things underground under our feet, but they were untapped. They were unexplored. Is now Nigeria is looking for they are looking for investors to come and invest in the mining in those resources that Nigeria has. But other sectors, they have investors. They have foreign investors in other sectors.
Um, I did have one question because when I was asking you about like Nigeria's resources and its the richness it has, you also mentioned that Africa is one of the only places in the world where they don't need to import anything.
Uh,
They have everything. And one of the ideas I've heard floated around. I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, basically on the future of U.S. sub-Saharan Africa trade, and one of the ideas that was floated around was the strengthening of the African Union and working together, like of all 54 countries working as one. Is that something that is being floated around in Nigerian politics? Is that something that people are enthusiastic about creating a more unified? I know there's currently an African Union, but there's talks of strengthening it and making it kind of an economic zone between all 54 countries.
yeah, it is said, united we stand. When we are united, we are stronger together. But it's a dream, but I can see it happening now. Why I can see it happening now? Because if you guys are united, you should have a language. One of the problem in Africa is also the multilinguistic aspect of Africa. I told you in Nigeria we have over 300 languages. If you go to Cameroon, they have over 200 languages. If you go to Ghana, they have hundreds of languages. Just take each. There's no African country as I know of today that speak only two languages. No, most African countries have country in their 10, their 100, a lot of languages. Some speak French, some speak Arabic, some speak English, some speak Swahili, which people think that if Africa wanted to decide about a common language, they can use Swahili because it's widely spoken in Africa. It's spoken among most Eastern African countries. Speak Swahili. So when you talk about the number of people, they have a more number of people speaking the language. You can use Swahili. Coming together at 54 countries, which would be great. Like United States is great is what it is because of the unity. But I see it a bit African coming together. Maybe is a dream for the future, but right now I think we are far from achieving that because we have a lot of problem dividing us than uniting us.
I wanna ask you about the North and South divide, but just before we do that, I want to get a quick question in about the corruption as it relates to the current president, and if you think he's doing a good job of limiting the corruption, or if it's the same or gotten worse with the current president.
I told you I want to put emotion apart and be critical in my analysis. If he asks a typical Nigerian the question he asks, no, the country government is very corrupt. They're speaking with no proof. That's what I want to do. Speculation. People passing through hardship. I told you at the beginning that the fuel subsidy and in Nigeria also, Nigeria run an economy that depend on the dollar. That depend on dollar. The Nigerian economy is very dollarized, which means that the price of items in Nigeria is based on how much the exchange rate is in the market. Because most things are imported. And when you want to import something, the common denomination people use is dollar. So if I use dollar to buy some goods in China and I bring it back to Nigeria, I will do the calculation and what is equivalent in naira. If I want to import something from America, I use dollar. So the economy is very dollarized. So and in Nigeria we have two exchange rates. We got official exchange rate. We have an exchange rate called the black market. Before the president came, $1 used to be, let's say, is an example. If $1 used to be $500, 500 naira in the official rate, in the black market rate, it was double. So like there was a disparity in the exchange rate. So when the president came, what did you do? He floated the naira. What does that mean to float the naira? That means the exchange rate in the official rate, as official rate should be the same exchange rate in the black market rate. And he removed fuel subsidies. Those are the things that cause hardship. But I won't come and say the government is so corrupt when I don't have my proof. I know EFCC is still working. EFCC, that is Economic and Financial Crime Commission in Nigeria, that goes after the so-called until the court say they are corrupt before you see until the alleged corrupt leaders. Under this man, a lot of past ministers in the previous administration, a lot of past ministers have been invited and questioned about the mismanagement of funds. About the mismanagement of funds. If you tell me, and also I also want to make something clear. There's no country where there's no corruption. It depends on the level of corruption. In China, in China, the reason why the corruption in China is so low because you embezzle $1 million, you're gone. You understand that? But
Yeah.
in so-called democratic countries, they won't do that. So you go to court, you follow the normal procedure. So some people get away with it. So saying corruption, like there's corruption everywhere. But I want to speak on the if I say funds are mismanaged, I agree with that. Corruption is a general word for everyone. There's corruption everywhere. I know the past administration, which is the Buhari administration, a lot of things were mismanaged. Of course, Nigeria is where it is today because of yesterday, because of 8 years Buhari did in power. So I want to put the blame more on Buhari, which did 8 years in power, than to put blame on this man that just did 2 years. A lot of things were damaged, a lot of things were done during Buhari, and he was a leader that didn't want to listen to nobody. People were talking. In fact, the people started traveling out of Nigeria under his regime because they discovered that nothing was changing. They talk, they criticize. He doesn't want to listen. He want to do what he want to do. So we are where we are today based on what has passed 8 years ago. This man just came 2 years. And I think 2 years is few to judge to give a verdict to government.
Okay. I want to shift gears because one of the things that I find very interesting about Nigeria is it's it's one of the largest, if not the largest, group of both Muslims and Christians living together in one nation. It's one of the largest countries where those two religions live together. And I want to ask: is there any sectarian tensions between those two groups in Nigeria? Is there any kind of violence, or has there been any violence between those two groups? Like, what is the relations between those two groups?
The relation between the Christian and Muslim in Nigeria is a cordial relation, and if you want to tell, the president in Nigeria is a Muslim, and just last week when the Pope on Sunday when the Pope was doing his the mass for his coming is becoming Pope, he's doing his mass like his ceremonial mass, the president was there. He's a Muslim, he was there. The actual president in Nigeria, his wife is a Christian. In fact, his wife is a pastor. The president right now, the president in Nigeria, the wife is a pastor. The Muslim and the Christian have lived in cordial relationship for years, but that does not stop some factions. Like in every it is said in every 12 there is a Judas. You see some people we like, and this thing is being portrayed outside Nigeria like if Christians were being persecuted. No, Christians are not being persecuted in Nigeria. But we have what make people say the Christians are being persecuted in Nigeria is mostly based in a place called the Middle Belt. It's Benue, a state called Benue, and a state called Jos in Nigeria. Benue and Jos. These are the Middle Belt area in Nigeria. And the fight between those people over there didn't just start from today. It's the fight between the herders and the farmers. The herders are the people who, by as their ancestral business, they rear cows, they rear all those cows mostly, and they are pastoral. We call them pastoral, the pastoral population. They move from one place to another with their cows. And in Nigeria, is now the government introduced the ranching. So if you want to rear cows, if you want to be a farmer in animal farming, get a place in ranching. No fight. You feed your animals, and them don't multiply. But we are used to a pastoral traditional population that move from one place to another with the cows. And sometimes they guide those cows into people's farm. And they get into the farms, they destroy their farm produce. You come the next morning, you see that what your chicks you were counting are gone. What you expected, like you already made your calculation. Okay, I have like 1 hectare of cabbage, 1 hectare of granules. You're already calculating your money at the end of the month to go to the bank. And you wake up one morning, you come to the farm, they're all gone. Those cows have eaten all the produce. I'm sure no farmer will be happy. So, and most herders, they call it the Fulani people. The Fulani people, they are mostly in the north. And those farmers, they are mostly the Christian people. And sometimes the farmers will fight. Sometimes they will kill their cows. They kill their cows, and the Fulani will retaliate.
I
You get
understand.
this? They
Yeah.
retaliate. So we have the herders who are mostly majorly Muslim, and the farmers who are majorly Christian.
And
And they
that
come, yeah,
oh, I was gonna say that happens mostly in the Bedway
in
and
the
the
Benue and Jos in the Middle Belt
Yes.
area.
Okay.
It also happened in the Southwest. Also, it happens sometimes where the farmers, but not people. I don't really think there is a deliberate attempt to fight Christian in Nigeria.
Okay.
Just by circumstance.
All right. Um, I know that in this country a lot gets made about kind of uh, militant groups in the country's north, like attacks from Boko Haram
Boko Haram.
and other militant groups. Um, can you just speak to the extent to which this remains an issue, if it is an issue, and if you think it needs to be addressed?
Um, I start with Boko Haram. Boko Haram started um, a bit above 10 years ago, a decade ago, and Boko Haram is I think is an Hausa word that means forbidden education, which means which means forbidding Western education. Boko Haram was a radical group that did not want the people in the north to be educated, mostly European education. So the group was created to fight education. It was a radical group. And it became worse when their leader was killed. Their leader was, I think his name was Abubakar. He was killed, I think, in 2009, if I'm not mistaken. He was killed by the police or the Nigerian army. And they came back a few years after, a kind of retaliation. And they were killing mostly military men and policemen. So it from the forbidden education, they moved further to try to Islamize not only the north but Nigeria. So they got affiliated to group like ISIS. They got affiliated to group like ISIS, and they started, targeting military camps, military men and policemen. Why? Some people ask the question: why, after so many years, the problem of terrorists and the militants have not been able to be quenched? Those those terrorists, they stay in a place called Sambisa Forest, and it borders country like Cameroon, it borders Chad, it borders Niger, who are the neighboring countries of Nigeria. And these terrorists, they are uh, they are they cross border. It's not the war between the terrorist group in Nigeria and the military is not a conventional war. It's not like the war in Ukraine and Russia, where I see the soldier, I know where they are, I know their camp, I can get my tactics ready. They strike, they operate mostly on what they call a kind of is this military term, they call it guerrilla warfare, something like that.
Guerrilla warfare.
They strike, and they move back. So a forest as big as France and is a thick forest. After they strike in Nigeria, they move to the other country. When the military are preparing again to fight them, they move to another country. So it has been very difficult for the military to fight them because of the terrain from where they're operating from. And recently we've seen what they call militant group. The militant group, if you remember, they are mostly in the southeastern part of Nigeria. And the northeastern part of Nigeria, not south. Northeastern part of Nigeria, the southeast, those are more of they are more of segregation. These are more people who want freedom for the Biafra land. That's another issue. But we're talking about now the militant and the terrorists in the northeast. They part of the northeastern part of Nigeria, where there is gold, bro. Where there is gold. I told you about Zamfara. Zamfara is part of the northeast. It's northeast. Where there is gold. So those people are employed by gold runners, by illegal gold mining. They pay the people to come on, take care of the gold mining. And because if you are mining gold, you must have some security. So a lot of them are not even from Nigeria. They came from neighboring Africa. A lot of them came from Chad, they came from Niger, they came from Burkina Faso, they came from Mali. Coming to Nigeria fighting people. Many of them are not Nigerians. Many of them came from African countries, other African countries. That's why we have that problem. It's not in the south. We don't have no terrorists in the south. We don't have no terrorists in the other part of the country. But they are mostly in the, because of the terrain and also because of the richness of the mining and also the natural resources they have in those places.
Is it like a serious problem for people in the north? Like, is there a lot of deaths from these terrorist attacks, or is it pretty sporadic in terms of?
Bro, it's serious. Why is it serious? Boko Haram reduced then. We didn't really hear much about terrorists no more. The Nigerian army was able to quench them. But even though as of last month, they are getting up a bit. But before we use every day, you wake up, you see in the news that there was a bomb in one state. It has stopped drastically. But the problem right now in the northeastern part of Nigeria are the militants. And also kidnapping. I told you about these elders earlier, and it happened that allegedly some of those elders were employed by the military people. Now, if you are going with a large amount of your cows down from the north to the western part of you got to get protection, because sometimes we have cow runners. They just come, they take your cow, and they're gone. So those people, the elders, what they were having now, they were having some gun, some AK-47 to defend themselves. Most of them are now using those AK-47 as a venture to make money by kidnapping people and asking for ransom. You see how dicey the problem. So why trying to solve one problem, you creating another one. So if I take the militant strike in the north right now is a big problem because sometimes they take a whole village as a ransom. They can come to the village, they ask for ransom. If you don't give us ransom, we won't allow you guys to have peace. And sometimes those villagers don't have no money. So it's a big problem. If I say it's not sporadic. The militant, the Nigerian army is trying their best, but a lot still need to be done.
Yeah, I remember. I remember last year there was a kind of big news because there was like 200 girls that were kidnapped from a school. Um,
Was it last year?
I think there was one last year.
About
If I'm
Chibok,
not,
about Chibok girl?
I thought it was a different kidnapping, but I could be
Yeah, I
mistaken.
remember. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember. I remember. They've been released. Those guys have been released.
Okay,
Those guys
okay,
have been released. And also, you know, those kidnappers also, no, like those terrorists also, they target some people. They know by kidnapping those girls is gonna be a big news. So that will make them get the government attention. That's what they do because apart from apart from trying to let's say take those little girls as their wife also, but which was not the case here. But those girls were released. I know what you're talking about. Those girls were released.
I also I want to. You mentioned this, but I know that the civil war in Nigeria from 1967 to 1970, I believe, was one of the kind of largest events in Nigerian history, and I know that it was primarily led by, correct me if I'm wrong, but Igbo
Yeah,
separatists.
yeah.
And I'm just wondering, is there any kind of remnants of that movement?
There is of recent. The Igbo people feel they are marginalized in Nigeria. The Igbo people has been the one who has never produced a president in Nigeria since Nigeria became independent. So they feel they are marginalized, and we have a small group. It's called segregationists. Drumming, we see drumming the rhythm of Biafra. We call them Biafra. Biafra is the Biafra was so they wanted to name their side Biafra. So they wanted to segregate from Nigeria, which started the civil war in 1962. As you said, I think the war lasted 3 years. I think it was 1963 to 1966. It lasted, I think, 3 years, no more than that. And we have a small group, but another thing, the problem with that Biafra is that you have some elites, most of them in Europe, in America, drumming the war of Biafra, sponsoring some youth in Nigeria to be doing some chaotic stuff. They are not on ground. You can say actually the leader of Biafra, they call them IPOB, the Emancipation People of Biafra, blah blah something. The leader of IPOB is in jail right now. He's having his trial in Nigeria. He was arrested in Kenya. That was, I think, maybe 3 4 years ago. So he's in trial. We still have some other people who have the radio. And what they forget to understand is that by wanting that you want your freedom, that's fine. But by going on online radio and instigating people against violence, it can cause more chaos. That's what most of them do. And one of them who call himself the Prime Minister of Biafra, who is called Simon Ekpa. He was in Ireland. He was arrested a few months ago, and he was charged with terrorism. He had a radio station, online radio station, instigating the young people in the southeast, which is a southeast is mostly the Igbo people where they are. instigating them and doing. They have an army, a Biafra army, killing people like unwarrantedly. And if you really want, if you really want to be like, if you really want freedom to be, if you really want segregation from the whole Nigeria, other people should be involved. In those eastern countries, we have the governors. In the Igbos, the southeastern, state. I think there are a couple of, is it 6 states, or even we have the southeast. Yeah, the south. There are about 6 states. You have the governors who are like the president of those states. You didn't involve them. The people, you didn't involve the people. Most of them outside the country, Nigeria, and drumming, the rhythm of segregation and naming Nigeria with all kind of name. Sometimes they call Nigeria zoo. So many unpalatable words they use against Nigeria. So if you want your freedom, if you want to have your independence, it's not by violence. You can't be like, many of them, like they embrace violence, which is not what we are asking for. And in the southeast, the prime minister, the so-called prime minister of Biafra, whom I told you about, he was just arrested in Ireland. He used to have what they call, in retaliation to arresting their leader, which is Nnamdi Kanu. Every Monday in the southeastern countries, there was no business. Southeastern states, pardon, there was no business, so people were staying at home. When you come out, their armed men come and chase people out. That was in Southeast. So it's like you are hurting the people you want to defend. So it was contradictory. So they are using, they want their freedom, which Nigeria doesn't want to give them, because they believe that together we stand strong. But at the same time, they feel that they want their independence because they are being marginalized. And if you want to look at it, sometimes they are right about it. How do you explain up to now the Igbo, the southeastern state have not produced a country in Nigeria? A president in Nigeria. They have a valid point, but the way to go about it, that's what they have to look at.
And has that movement, the separatist movement, has that gained a lot of? I know. Obviously, there was the Civil War, but has that movement gained steam recently, or is that something that's been going on since the Civil War?
No, since the Civil War, it has died down. It's just recently, less than those a few years ago, maybe I say maybe the past decade, that they started coming up again. But the Civil War was a terrible situation in Nigeria that nobody want to remember. The Civil War, a lot of stuff happened, a lot of things happened, a lot of lessons were learned. So nobody wants to go back to those days. So when the people remember those days, and if you want to look at it, is the younger generation whom most have not witnessed the Civil War. They are the one drumming. They are the one drumming the rhythm of Biafra. The older men who saw the Civil War, who witnessed the Civil War, they are not even canvassing for that, because they don't want to. They don't remember the souvenir. They don't want to remember the atrocities that happened during the Civil War. But it's the young people who were born after that, who didn't even see the Civil War, they are the one drumming the rhythm of Biafra. So it tells you the disparity between those, it's two generations.
And I just want to make sure I heard you correct. Did you say that the Western nations have done stuff to kind of foment and perpetuate that movement or strengthen it?
No. You talk about the Western world.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say that. I don't have.
Okay.
No, I did. I won't say, I don't have no proof of that, so I won't say something like
Okay. All right. Um, Raphael, I think I obviously there's a lot more to say because you can't do the entire Nigeria in 1 hour, but I think this was very tasteful and is going to give a lot of people a good taste and a good interest of what's happening in Nigeria's political climate. Is there anything glaring that I didn't ask you about that you think is worth mentioning? Anything that jumps out that you think is really important to just mention?
Yeah, something I would like to also to add is that you know everywhere we have the good and we have the bad. You know, and Nigeria is one of the most blessed countries. The in the United States, Nigeria has the most learned immigrant in the United States. You know, and I was told out of 10 black doctors in New York, at least 7 of them are Nigerian. So he's so blessed. But the only issue we have in Nigeria is mismanagement of our resources. If our leader were managing the resources the way it's supposed to be, we should be the example that many other countries will follow. But I can tell you in Nigeria we have more positive than negative. I know you were asking me a question about corruption, I'm sure you must have heard a lot of things. That's why I told you I want to put my emotional side aside. I just want to be critical. I want to look at the figures. Though on papers, recently the GDP, the World Bank said Nigeria GDP has increased, Nigeria has paid their debt. On paper it look good, but when you go to the people, people are still suffering. But like I told you about the economic policy that the government took. But before you make an omelette, you got to break the egg. You know, but there are so many good development in Nigeria than negative. We may have some little stuff there, but I'm sure with time everything gonna be good.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on this program to speak to me. It's been really fascinating and really interesting, and I really thank you for the time.
You're welcome, Nathan.
Stick around as after I finish the call for just 1 sec because uh, if you leave too quickly, then some of it won't upload. So I'm just gonna end it, and then I'll just say thank you to everybody, and be sure to subscribe, and see you guys next time.